Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's webinar. My name is Bridget Spurgeon. I am a clinical and holistic nutritionist working globally. It is my pleasure to be talking to you today about a groundbreaking new gut health test that has been launched by a company out of the Scandinavias, Zinzino. And first, before we get started, though, let me just give a couple of disclaimers. First, I'm sharing this for educational purposes through the lens of a nutritionist. Nothing I say today is intended to diagnose or treat any medical conditions. In fact, the test that I'm going to be talking about is not a diagnostic test. It is a directional test with indicators leaning towards strain or resilience of our whole system, and is intended to inform lifestyle, nutrition, and supplement choices, which I am super excited about. So, to set the stage for what lays in front of us, a new frontier in nutrition-based testing and looking at the physiology of the body, let's go back to Paleolithic times. And if we look at the evolution of our human relationship with food, it is really interesting to me, really where we have landed, but we can really understand and glean some things from our ancestors. So if we think back to hunter-gatherers, they had food for survival. They had periods of feasting and periods of like sustenance, but also periods of starvation. And so it was a very real reality that you could die from starvation. What came out of this was DNA adaptations for survival, though, that we can still benefit from if we understand them to this day. But also, when you are relying on the earth for your sustenance, for healing, there's also this wisdom required because there are certain foods that could be poisonous for the body and certain foods that can heal the body. So when we look at this era and this population, there was a necessity to have a connection with the earth, with the body, and with food coming from nature. When we look at the next era, which would be over the last millennia, we see how food came into the home and into our schedules. We see breakfast, lunch, and dinner. We see how food also became a sign or symbol of wealth, and we see some gluttony come out of that. At this time, though, food was still locally sourced. We did see certainly grains integrated into the food supply, and cultural traditions emerged based on different parts of the world. And this is really interesting to see. But also during this time, whereas before was, starvation or the fear of being, killed by, by an animal or something like that. In this time, in these societies, the fears were around infectious disease. And so now we go into, let's say, the last 75-ish years, where it's the industrial era. And here we see food perceived as pleasure. And we also saw food used as a way to control weight or the way that the body looks based on body image. So we have this industrialization of food, which led to ultra processed foods and then global food supply. And then we also saw this emergence of or drastic increase in chronic disease. And then also this notion of calories in, calories out, and this whole like using nutrition was this very like two-dimensional picture there. And we've really moved on, though, from some of those things. Although certainly the ultra-processed foods, chronic disease, using food for pleasure and emotional support and so forth, still carries into modern day. But really, for my career, we've been ushered into this understanding of nutrition to heal the body, to fuel the body, and to thrive. I love that we've been able to use modern day science to affirm ancient wisdom. We've seen the emergence of clinicians, of functional medicine. Certainly, we have technological advancements and diagnostics. Now we have AI, which is fast tracking some research and understandings. And we're also in a time of social media and influences, and there have been extreme diets that have emerged, and probably as a result of chronic disease and conditions. And around that, what I find working with my clients is there can be a lot of overwhelm, there can be a lot of confusion. And so what we need is clarity and simplicity that still affects someone at a personalized level because we do have bioindividuality. We also have seen the science of genetics develop, and I think this has definitely been very, very meaningful and something that plays into nutrition as well. But when we look at the new frontier, we are definitely looking to the science of the gut microbiome. And so this is what I see moving forward, using the science that we have to optimize nutrition and lifestyle. So when we look at the gut, we know that the microbiome communicates with the brain, that impacts the hormones, the immune system, our mood, and so much more. We understand that the gut functions beyond digestion and the poop that comes out of it. The gut is a communication hub where the outside world is translated into signals that guide our physiology, our mood, our energy, and our resilience. So when we can tap into this, this is where I believe that we can optimize lifestyle and health so that we can thrive. It's interesting to see the impact of our diets, our genetics, our environment, our medications and supplements, and our exercise, and how that translates to our food choices, even our hunger and our cravings, to our cognitive behavior, our moods, emotions, and mental health, our stress levels, our social interactions, and even our emotions. So some things about the gut that we do understand. We understand that more than 90% of disease can be traced back to the gut. We know that 70 to 80% of our immune system resides in the gut. The gut is responsible for nutrient absorption and even our hormones. In fact, we have a community of microbes called the estrobolome, which is responsible for synthesizing and detoxing estrogen, for example. And did you know that 90% of our serotonin is made in the gut, which then impacts our our mood and joy or depression and our sleep quality. What I think is really cool, and this comes from my background in microbiology. In fact, I used to play with bacterial DNA. I used to isolate the DNA, splice it, and put it back together. I used to make recombinant DNA, basically. So this is really interesting to understand, is that we have 10 times more microbes in our system than we do human cells. We have 100 times more microbial DNA as part of our system than we do human genes. So this is actually really fascinating because I just had some genetic testing done recently, which looked at my propensity for certain diseases like Alzheimer's, diabetes, obesity, fatty liver disease. and looked at how my metabolism works, how I process different macronutrients, and how I make certain active nutrients in the body. And when you look at genetic testing, because we know we can get tested for, let's say, a breast cancer gene and some things like that, it can be a little bit depressing. But let me just say right now that our DNA does not determine our destiny. And just to emphasize this even more, if we look at our human DNA and if we can understand some things that it's telling us, what does it say that we have 100 times more bacterial DNA? This is a clue that this is a whole ecosystem that we need to be understanding more about and targeting so that we can optimize our internal health. I believe that the gut is a universe of untapped information about our human physiology and about disease. And the more we understand about the gut and its function, so not just the microbes in the gut, but what these microbes are doing in the body and how these pathways are working and communicating with one another, when we can understand the language of the gut, then I believe there's so much hope for reversing and preventing chronic disease, and then being able to live in harmony and thrive. And the goal is to make healthy living and healing effortless, right? To make that easy. So, as I introduce the gut health test, which has been launched by Zinzino, I became an independent partner with Zinzino about a year ago. And this has been such an amazing relationship as it has impacted my clients all over the world. And we've seen some fantastic results, especially using their home blood spot testing. But it's so exciting that they have released the first ever gut health test that looks at function and pathways, looking at metabolites through the use of just a prick of the finger, two little drops of blood. And so this is revolutionary in the space. They are translating science into personalized strategy. And I do want to give some credit because I'm using their content research information. And actually, I'm even using Dr. Martina's slides today to communicate some of these concepts. So I want to highlight Dr. Martina Tarrison. She is the lead scientist on the gut health test. And then also Dr. Colin Robertson. I'm reading his latest book right now, and that information is incredible. So I'm using some of that information. And then also I use a lot of information from Dr. Paul Clayton. So I just want to recognize those doctors and scientists. They are truly the pioneers and the innovators in this space and leading the way in the science. So these slides are from Dr. Martina, and so I just wanted to communicate this process of developing these technologies. So we've been looking at the mapping of these microbes that live inside our body for several years. In fact, so it was 25-ish years ago that I was working on bacterial genes. And I think the information that we have gleaned from that is absolutely valuable and incredible, but there are limitations to it, and there's a lot more to the story. And so we saw that as they were mapping microbiomes and doing poop samples, even doing fecal transplants. In fact, I have to tell you about this because I remember reading this study several years ago, but they did a fecal transplant from an obese person from a thin person to an obese person, and that obese person lost weight and became thin. And when they reversed the transplant, they gained all the weight back. And it just showed how significant the microbiome is. And fecal transplants are a thing, by the way. But then what they also found is they would look at two people with the same microbial composition, but they would have different outcomes. So it can't just be the microbes there. It has to be, how are those microbes interact? How are they being fed? How are they interacting with the body? So Zinzino asked the question, how do we test this function? How do we know what these microbes are doing? And so ushered in looking at the metabolites that these microbes produce. So these metabolites we can look at like the language of the gut. So they're communicating with us, and as this language shifts, it can change how our whole system behaves. So the gut is speaking to the immune system. It's speaking to the brain through neural pathways. We know this is done predominantly through the vagus nerve. It is interacting with our metabolism and even influences how we feel hungry and have cravings and have satiety. And then there is crosstalk between the immune system and our neurology. So there's this cross section, this crossroads where everything is communicating and things are happening. So this is where Dr. Martina, she was looking at the crossroads and looking at what had a big impact here. And so she found the tryptophan pathway, and as she studied it, she saw the significance here and how we can learn, test, and have positive application for this. So we look at the tryptophan pathway. So many of you might be familiar with tryptophan from eating turkey and then getting sleepy afterwards. So it's linked with the serotonin, melatonin pathway. This pathway, however, you may not realize is just 1 to 2% of where tryptophan is going. So if we look at this as traffic going in 3 different roads, the serotonin would be 1 to 2% of that traffic. This regulates mood and sleep and gut movement. But then we have another road, another pathway, which is the indole derivatives, of which IPA is a significant one. And IPA signals cooperation and balance in the body. It's really important. It's a powerful antioxidant. It's important for looking at inflammation and immune balance in the body, and indicates resilience. And so this is where we want our traffic going. But we also have traffic that can be going down another pathway, and that's the kynurenine pathway, KYN. And this pathway, this goes towards NAD+, which is energy, but it can be activated by stress and inflammation, and it can cause oxidative stress and disease in the body. And so this pathway, we don't want this pathway to be activated and for there to be a traffic jam with this kynurenine in this metabolite over here. So what's really amazing when we look at these 3 pathways, we actually can see some practical solutions. We can see that we have the potential to influence how we respond to stress by directing the traffic down one road. So this IPA now is really significant and a significant marker to look at. If we can increase the IPA, our body can move towards this resilience, can move towards improved gut barrier function, can move towards good brain communication. So here's how we can test that. We can look at the tryptophan, IPA, and the kynurenine. And so when you get your Zinzino test, you get all these markers. And so tryptophan is the substrate, right? So that's coming from your proteins. That's an amino acid. It makes the IPA, so that's our protector. So that's the one we want to see in positive amounts. Then we have the kynurenine, which indicates stress. And then we look at ratios between so we look at the kynurenine tryptophan ratio, and that indicates immune stress. We look at the IPA tryptophan, which is the gut microbiome efficiency. Then we look at the IPA to the kynurenine, and that is microbiome immune support. And then they put all these factors together and they give you a gut health indicator, which lets you know if your system is leaning towards resilience or strain. Now, what is really amazing is that we, just by applying some simple lifestyle recommendations, we can then shift. So if you're tested and you test towards stress and strain and immune imbalance, then there's some simple things that you can do to shift your body towards resilience. So this becomes significant in lifestyle nutrition. So what are some practical insights and benefits of IPA? We can look at root causes of inflammation and we can calm inflammation. We can calm that pathway when we understand what's going on. As a holistic nutritionist, I am very focused on looking at root causes of problems. And this is why looking at omega 6 to 3 ratios, for example, looking at cellular inflammation and the impact of omega 3 has been so significant in my practice because we're looking at a root cause. Well, now we can combine looking at cellular inflammation root causes and then also looking at root cause inflammation stemming from the gut. And now we're closer to solving the problems of inflammation in the body. IPA indicates gut lining integrity and function. And so we have applications of supporting the gut in healing if they're, for example, leaky gut type of scenarios. We also see it act as a powerful antioxidant. It is neuroprotective as well as cardioprotective, and then has the ability to balance the immune system when the immune system is dysregulated. This is really an exciting field to be looking at as well because it supports metabolism. And one of the ways it does this is through stimulating GLP-1. Specifically, someone that would really benefit from this testing, or a few people that would really benefit from this testing based on what I've just shared here. Someone dealing with inflammation and pain levels or inflammatory conditions in the body, right? Also, AKA autoimmune diseases. Someone who's concerned with their gut function or leaky gut types of conditions. Someone who wants to support brain healing and heart health, or any cognitive or mental health concerns, someone who wants to regulate the immune system, or someone who's struggling with weight and metabolism, hunger, and cravings. So what are the lifestyle applications? So when we get the test results back, what do these results tell us and how do you apply this? How do you make the changes? How do you apply this to your lifestyle? Well, what's so amazing is it pulls all the amazing things together so we can experience optimal health. But a key one here for the tryptophan IPA pathway is the emphasis on fiber intake to support the healthy gut microbes and to support these positive metabolites. And it's optimizing the fiber intake because there are different types of fibers. It's also looking at polyphenols. So this would be, the examples would be our bright color, like blueberries, our bright colored fruits and vegetables. Polyphenols might also be seen in an extra virgin olive oil, for example, or in teas or chocolate, things like that. looks at the role of essential fatty acids, looks at our protein, and as well as our exercise, sleep, and stress. What I think is so exciting is we have an opportunity here to look at factors that can feed our stress resilience, can feed our body's ability to adapt to stress, and not have someone just tell you you just need to take stress out of your life, or you just need to sleep better. I think we all know those things, but those things can be really challenging. So if we can have tools where we can fuel the resilience pathway, where we can help the body adapt, then this is creating creating these lifestyle strategies that can be easier for us to apply. So what does testing look like, and how do we get that done? So it's really simple. I love that you just have control. You don't have to go through the medical system to get these tests. You literally can just order them online. If you have a Zinzino account already, you can order through your account. You would go under shop and go under tests or health tests, and there is also a package that you can order that comes with the Xenobiotic, which is the prebiotic fibers that support the IPA pathway. So you can use the kit at home, or if you're doing this through a practitioner or clinic, certainly you can have that done in the clinic. But it just takes a couple of drops of blood. It's just the prick of the finger, just like you would check your blood glucose. Then you mail those into the lab. The lab, it's Vitas. It's an independent partner lab, Vitas in Oslo, Norway. You get your results back in 2 to 3 weeks. They will be uploaded online, so you can view those. When you get your full report, they're looking at the different markers, and there will be explanations and recommendations in your report. But for those of you who are ordering through me, I review that report, and I make recommendations also based on lifestyle, medical history, nutrition, and so forth. So we can customize that to your bio individuality. All right. If you have any additional questions, please feel free to reach out to me directly. Or if we're not connected, you can go to my website, which is simply bridgetspurgeon.com, or you can reach out to me through social media platforms. Thank you so much for joining me today. I hope you learned a few things, and I hope that you'll be able to get your test and your results soon.